It's a real honor to be here today. That's why this is what I wear to visit my in-laws on Thanksgiving, so. When I take the prisoners swimming, they have the times of their lives. I love to watch them floating on their backs. Unburdened and relaxed, I sit in the tall grass and look the other way. When I haul them in, they always say, our sentences will not be served. We are constantly on trial. It's a way to be free. We are constantly on trial. And it's a way to be free. Most nights I go for a drive, to the highest place I can find. I'm standing on a cliff with goose flesh, watching the wind rip the leaves from the trees. Every breath, every breath, every breath is death, every breath is death. Every breath is death, defying. And soon we'll all be back in the yard. Behind the walls, living hard. Dreaming of cool, cool rivers and tall, tall grass. We are constantly on trial. and it's a way to be free, and I'm free. I am free. I'm so free. Yes, I'm free. Thank you. All this natural information, all this natural information got me in a state of deep contemplation of this natural information. Strolling my baby down the street, all I see is little feet. She sleeps, I dream. A dream, baby, dream. A dream, baby, dream. A dream, natural information. A dream, natural information. A breeze upon the Isle of Skin. Meadowlark lemon lies within. Within natural information. Within natural information. I wrote this song in 5 and forever. I'm writing it right now. I wrote this song in 5, in recovery slides. Using natural information. Natural information. Taking that natural information. 2 million years of data. Humans still in mode beta. Despite natural information. Natural information. Taking that natural information. Taking that natural information. I know a man says he can't stand all the naked souls. Everyone naked as day, so he keeps himself locked away. Everywhere I look, it's all I see. You can't hide what's inside. Maybe he'll buy another gun, or maybe he'll become a policeman, or kill one. You escaped what I escaped. You'd be stress eating in a diner in Dallas too. That's why I wear these shades that say F you. So I can't see yours, and you can't see mine. Naked soul, and out on the highway, I slip in right behind you, just like a gator into the glades. Gotta destroy these naked souls. Gotta destroy these naked, 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 naked souls. Naked souls. Columbus blew a hole in Hispaniola. Gotta destroy these naked souls. Gotta destroy these naked, 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 naked souls. These naked souls. Thank you. two jokes planned. The first one was about my outfit. I forgot the second one. I feel something coming on. A disease or a song. Call the captain. Long gone. Warmed our hands in the corpse of a wild horse. On the shores of Assateague. And then blood on our hands, up to our elbows. At least we're all in this horse together. I feel something coming on. A disease or a song. Call the captain. Why, he's long gone. And the wooden nickel that we took in the divorce of rider and course was by the book. It's a habit of force, straight from the source and by the book. Every way, every day, every way, every day. I feel something coming on. I feel something coming on. Thank you. I have one more song. Let me say again that it's a real honor to be a part of this thing today. And also I remembered my joke. Which is, they asked Killer Mike to do this show. And when they called him, he said, "Is Bill Callahan not available?" One fine morning, I'm gonna ride out. Yeah, one fine morning time, I'm gonna ride right out. Just me and the skeleton crew. We're gonna ride out in a country kind of silence. It's all coming back to me now. My apocalypse. My apocalypse. The curtain rose and burned. In the morning sun. And the mountains, they bowed right down. In the morning sun. It was like a ballet of the heart. Because when the earth turns cold and the earth turns black, yeah, when the earth turns cold and the earth turns black, will I feel you riding on my back? When the earth turns cold and the earth turns black, will I feel you riding on my back? Because I am a part of the road. I'm a part of the road. I'm the hardest part. I'm the hardest part. The hardest part of the road. My. My. Thank you very much.
musicians advocacy nonprofit. And on behalf of our organization, I'd like to say how honored we are to help host today's informative discussion about the state of today's music industry. It's a topic that has driven the work we've done here in Austin for over 5 years now. And as musicians struggle more than ever to live and work in this, the live music capital of the world, we are here to help. Musicians everywhere face similar challenges as we do here in Austin, from performance payouts that haven't. Oh yes, can you hear me now? Yeah, can y'all hear me anyway? I'll talk kind of loud. Everybody's always telling me to shut up anyway. But we face similar challenges all across the country, from performance payouts that haven't changed since the 1980s to abysmally low mechanical royalty rates for streaming. You know all about that tyranny, right? And now copyright infringement with the onset of AI technology. And although musicians are an important workforce that contribute a great deal to our economic ecosystem, they, as independent contractors, do not have access to many of the benefits enjoyed by other working members of our society. Our most basic needs of housing, healthcare, have become obstacles in our current climate. And on top of this, older issues remain as Black, Latin, AAPI, LGBTQIA+, and women musicians struggle for opportunities, for recognition, and even for safety. While our organization has been humbled to do our very small part in addressing some of these issues, we've learned something very valuable, that it takes a collaborative effort on every level of society to address these fundamental challenges. Today, we have assembled industry experts and civic leaders to engage in this crucial dialogue as we hope to identify these issues and work towards solutions. First off, our panel will be moderated today by my colleague over here, Austin, Texas Musicians Advocacy and Education Director, Sarah Hall. And if you're ever in need of a harpist, that's your person right there. And we are joined by a representative from Council Member Natasha Harper-Madison's office. Natasha is the council member for this district, and we're honored to have Sharon Mays with us here today. Thank you, Sharon. Next up, my dear friend and musical collaborator, Ray Price. Ray is a military veteran, a musician, hockey player, surfer, boxer, senior program director for Notes for Notes nonprofit, and serves on our board, and is also a new father, by the way. So, yeah. Courtney Santana, superstar, singer, survivor, servant. While Courtney is not on the road supporting famous musicians and theater productions, she serves as the CEO of Survive to Thrive and is a new board member with our organization. And y'all better look out, because Courtney is blowing up this year. Y'all look for that new album coming up. Pedro Carvalho is the proud owner of one of Austin's most beloved music venues, the Far Out Lounge, and is a new member of the City of Austin's Music Commission. During South by Southwest last month, I got to sit down with Pedro and talk about some of the issues that are facing music venues today, and I look forward to his perspective here today. And finally, a man that likely needs no introduction, the venerated Dr. Cornel West. We know Dr. West as a brilliant philosopher, a theologian, a political activist, a social critic, actor, and intellectual. You may not know that Dr. West is also a brilliant artist in his own right, having collaborated on several albums with artists such as Prince, Jill Scott, KRS-One, Andre 3000, and a personal favorite of mine, Gerald Levert. Yeah. God bless Gerald. When Dr. West's team approached us to help organize this event, I learned personally of his deep passion for lifting up the creative workforce. And as he takes today's dialogue forward in his campaign for president and beyond, we feel very fortunate to know that this discussion will help guide future policy decisions. Thank you all for being here with us today. Thanks to Bill Callahan for the wonderful music a moment ago. And thank you, Dr. West, for facilitating this very important discussion. Dr. Cornel West.
Oh, what a blessing to be the east side of Austin, Texas. The chocolate side of Austin, Texas. Getting less chocolate every day. Gentrification and so, but thank you all so very much how blessed I am to be here. I want to begin first by acknowledging we are in consecrated space. This is George Washington Carver Museum. Indeed, indeed. And all of those who have positions at this museum, just raise your hand or stand up. Ooh, just stand up, my brother. Stand up, my brother. Stand up, stand up. Give it up for them. Give it up for them. Yeah, the caretakers of this precious, precious, precious place. Indeed, indeed, indeed. I want to thank my dear brother Max for helping facilitate. There's my dear brother Max. He's a core member of the team. Brother Bashir, I want to thank Brother Bashir, indeed. Brother Douglas, there's Brother Douglas. There he is. There he is. I want to thank my dear brother Bill Callahan, I'm telling you. Lord, I was telling him about Dream River. I was telling him about apocalypse. For 30 years, he's been a truth teller and a witness bearer. And I'm told his precious son is here somewhere. Where is he? Where is he? Give it up for this brother, too. Yes, indeed. There you go, my brother. Your father's a grand artist. He's a grand artist. And I look forward for this tremendous insight, reflection, meditation on this most indescribable phenomena called music. And you see, music is not ornamental or decorative. It's constitutive of who I am. Preserves my sanity and my dignity. So I come from a black people, a great black people who have created the greatest musical tradition of the 20th century. It's in conversation with a whole host of artists and musicians. But when it comes to indescribable artistic creativity and spiritual fortitude and courage and soulfulness. And you see, I come from a tradition that says soul ain't nothing but the sharing of a soothing sweetness against the backdrop of a grim catastrophe. That's what it is. You listen to a little Donny Hathaway and Aretha and Luther. We ain't got the Chaka Khan yet. Because there's a brother named Chaka here and a sister named Keys. Where are they? Where are they? Stand up. We're talking about riders against the storm. When they threw down just a few hours ago, and they were deeply, deeply shaped by Sweet Honey in the Rock, Bernice Reagan, and the last poets. We just lost one of those giants in Europe. And Gil Scott Heron. And we got so many others to talk about. But what we're talking about is the ways in which our inquiry into music is, in fact, operative in the campaign that I'm running. Because, see, my campaign ain't nothing but a moment in a movement of a great people who oftentimes have had to come to terms with catastrophe, first with moans and groans rather than propositions and sentences. And And when you're dealing with catastrophe, you got the blues. See, the blues ain't nothing but catastrophe lyrically expressed, artistically transfigured, and honestly confronted. And one of the reasons why, if you a blues man or a blues woman, is not a function of skin pigmentation. There's a whole lot of black folk living on superficial surfaces. There's a whole lot of beautiful Africans who don't want to come to terms with the funk. They want to remain deodorized and sanitized and sterilized. No, you got to deal with catastrophe. There's never been a race problem in America. There's been catastrophes visited upon black people, visited upon indigenous people, visited upon poor whites or whatever. And what is distinctive about music at its greatest, hear it in Beethoven when he says, I get up every morning to unflinchingly look at the evil in order to produce beauty. Here comes Ode to Joy in the Ninth Symphony. To come to terms with catastrophe means raw reality, wounds and bruises and scars. And there's a blues man from Ireland named William Butler Yeats that says it takes more courage to dig deep inside the dark corners of your own soul than it does for a soldier to fight on the battlefield. Ooh, that's a blues sensibility. Catastrophe, slavery, domination, occupation. Oh my God, Gaza. Catastrophe, indescribable suffering. Sudan. There's some catastrophe on the east side of Austin. I live in Harlem. We got some catastrophe. And when it comes to psychic and spiritual, every human being is going to have to deal with catastrophe. Because when you stand in front of the coffin of your mama, that's a catastrophe. And that thin stuff not going to help you. And one of the reasons why we dealing with a music industry that's so commodified and corporatized is that they also don't want to deal with catastrophe. They just want to make money. They want to make profits. They want to stay on the superficial level. So we're going to have a Socratic dialogue today. I'm not going to go on and on now. We're going to have a Socratic dialogue today. But I hope we keep in mind that last line of Percy Shelley's great essay in defense of poetry when he says poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. What you mean, Percy? Revolutionary poet that you are. What do you have in mind? Well, I have in mind what August Wilson had in mind when he said that performance itself, especially when grounded in the black tradition, be grounded in whatever tradition of oppressed people, performance itself is a way of authorizing a future when it looks as if the present has been forever trumped, forever foreclosed, no way out. Every possibility, every option cut off, Pharaoh on both sides of the bloody Red Seas. And then here come Duke Ellington. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. What is swing? It's a different conception of time. It's a different kind of beat. It's a flattening of the notes. It's bringing in the black keys so you don't have the C, but the B flats and the F sharps. To do what? To make a way out of no way. To create a conception of a future that looks to be completely erased, and lo and behold, it is still alive, latent in the hearts and souls of everyday people if they come together based on a vision and an organization, and if they maintain their spiritual compass in such a way, that they can not preserve hope, they can enact hope, they can be a hope. That's what struggle, serious struggle, is all about. For people who were told every day of their lives, you're less beautiful, you're less moral, you're less intelligent, you have no possibility, no future at all. Just learn how to become well-adjusted to injustice and well-adapted to indifference. And here come the musicians. Woo! Sometimes it's just a voice. Sometimes a little help with Lucille, B.B. King's guitar. Nobody loves my mama, and she might be jiving too. That's B.B., the B side of the thrill is gone. But you're going to feel something. You're going to feel fortified. You're going to be straightened up. You're going to be ready to fight because you confronted catastrophe. And you kept the swing in it, so you got a different conception of time. So you're seeing something that mainstream are not seeing. And then you're going to end up improvisational, so flexible and fluid and so protein, folk can't keep track of you because your timing is such that you don't know when you're going to hit the drummer song or get polyrhythmic or syncopated all the way down. Music. Thank God for music, given the species that we are. We so wretched. We shot through with so much greed and hatred and resentment and envy. But that melody sounds so good. Just like my brother Bill's voice. Beautiful voice. Sounds so rich. No matter how dark the subject matter. When there's a song about the subject matter does not have the last word. Music. Let's talk about music today, y'all. Let's go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out, and thank you, Dr. West, for those beautiful, moving words. We have an incredible panel here for you all, so please welcome to the stage Pedro Carvalho, Ray Price, Courtney Santana, and from Austin Councilmember Natasha Harper Madison's office, Sharon Mays.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I should have worn it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out today to be a part of this conversation. Again, once the panel discussion has concluded, there will be time for audience questions, so make sure to hold on to any questions that may come to mind. And with that, we will dive on into it, guys. So to start out this discussion, I'd like to establish why this dialogue is so important to have in the first place. In each of your own words, why is music, and therefore musicians and everybody who makes it possible, so important to protect and nurture in our society? Basically, why does music matter? And I guess we'll start with Pedro and work our way over.
It would be so difficult to say this after Dr. West just explained it. In a very personal way, I'm a family of immigrants from Brazil, indigenous people, and for us as a people has been a way to maintain our stories, to be true and alive, and have the longevity that people have been trying to raise for a very long time. And it's true storytelling, it's honest, and it's important because it tells people who we are and maintains our identity.
I had an answer to this, and it changed when I got up here after I heard his speech. I feel like music helped me to process trauma and helped me to express things that I probably couldn't have said, but I could sing and I could write out and I could create something artistic that made it less traumatic for me. So it's a good way to process trauma for me.
I would say, well, for my boss, Councilmember Harper Madison, music is what brought her family to Austin. Her father was a musician and was at the Kerrville Folk Music Festival and just really felt such a connection with what was happening out there and the musicians and the nudist colony out there that he said, I need more of this, and decided to move himself and his new family to Austin. For me personally, I've always been a lover of music. My mom said I was singing in the crib before I could speak. I feel an intrinsic connection to music. It's a beautiful thing. It's a way for people to let their heart and their mind and their soul speak. It's just something, it is so cliche, but I cannot imagine a world without music. It's everything.
Well, to follow all these great answers, well, I've spent a lot of time in Japan and Korea, and I would go and watch these concerts, and they would sing every Beyonce lyric and every Kanye West lyric or whatever the artist was, and then you get on a train with them and you're like, hey, you like the show? And they can't speak a lick of English. And you're like, oh, wow, so this really is universal. Their dialogue was perfect when they were in tune with the music. But for me personally, it is, to quote Dr. West, it is the way that I best confront catastrophe. You know, I left a corporate gig with the only empowerment was being a musician and knowing that I was going to do whatever I had to do to survive as a musician because that's what moved me every day. So I think that many of us may share that same testament, and it's important.
Yeah, incredible answers, you guys. For the rest of these questions, just jump in if you have any kind of answer to them, and bounce ideas off of each other. Feel free to just make this a conversation. So in your opinions, what is currently one of the most pressing issues facing musicians and creatives in general?
I believe, we talked about this, affordability is an issue in Austin in general. But for creatives, why our art is seen as a commodity and not to be valued and paid for is a real issue in Austin, and I'm sure in other cities. I mean, I've been in Nashville and LA, and it seems to be a prevalent problem that we're not valuing our musicians. And I know people in my life that they're supposed to be a bass player. They're not supposed to be an accountant, so they should be paid for what they're made to do, and that's an issue of being able to take care of yourself.
I'm a bass player. I'm like, yes, you're right. I don't want to run a bar. I want to go on tour.
So affordability, any other issues that you guys think are super pressing?
No, you go right ahead.
Oh, can I interrupt Dr. West? That doesn't feel right. I mean, I would echo what Courtney said. Affordability, of course, is a challenge for our city. I grew up in Austin. I'm about to date myself, but when I graduated from college and I moved back home, I worked in the music industry. And when I think of, and this was in the mid-90s, when I think about Austin at that time, and I remember one year a friend and I were talking about how many live music shows we had seen, and it was like 150. Because there were so many musicians, and none of those musicians were getting rich off of their gigs, but they could afford to be in Austin and be a musician. And when I think about so many of the shows that I went to that were not major artists, that were not on the radio, that were not doing a big tour, they were just great music that had I not gone to that show, I probably would have never heard them. I have a box of local musicians, bands that I love. And so when you talk about affordability, it's not just the housing aspect of it, it is the loss of the chance for those people to be a part of the creative fabric of Austin. And even if they go on to manage bars or do other things, it's that time in their life of being able to express their creativity. And what are we losing by not even having the opportunity for that to be in our community?
Right. Dr. West?
Yeah, you know, for me, one of the saddest features of our decadent culture, and by decadent, what I mean is a culture more and more where everything is for sale and everybody is for sale. And when you live in that kind of culture, then everything is transactional rather than transformational. And when you live in that kind of culture, coming from where I come from, where justice is not just what love looks like in public, but tenderness is what love feels like in private. You see, so that the history of black music is the history of a tender music. Gentle, kind, comforting, unsettling, yes. But when you listen to a David Ruffin sing Smokey's music, there's a silkiness there. And we ain't got the Russell Tompkins of the stylistics, a Ted Mills of Blue Magic. And I could go on and on and on. Brother Pat know what I'm talking about. You see, Otis Redding sings, try a little tenderness. He's a giant from Macon, Georgia. Big, beautiful black brother. Sounds so good because he's delicate and touching. Even Babyface doesn't have a Roni. He has a tender Roni. For Bobby Brown. Am I telling the truth? But we could go on and on and on. You look at music today. I was blessed to write a song with a genius. His name was Bootsy Collins. He put out an album in 2008 called Funk Capital of the World. He wrote a song called Freedom, Freedum. What happened when the music becomes so dumbed down? Titillation, stimulation, no tenderness, no caring, no nurture, just bombardment, as if the body is just a bundle of pleasures to be titillated in order to buy records to reproduce the music industry with their profits. And so part of the question becomes, well, what does one do? I mean, it's hard to find, for example, a group in popular music and even in black music where you have groups that sing together with tenderness. I mean, Boys and Men is probably the last one. Now, that's not just an accident. That's a form of spiritual warfare against a people who need tenderness and gentleness and kindness and sweetness to preserve their sense of agency and sanity. Because if all you're going to get is just titillation and stimulation, you ain't going to get no transformation. And we ain't even talking about a level of a Sarah Vaughan or a Carmen McRae or Ella Fitzgerald or Dinah Washington. I mean, that's just what Duke Ellington would call beyond category. Now, Samantha is strong. Y'all know Samantha. Samantha Joy. Check her out. That's like missing out on Rochelle Farrell. The tradition is trying to break through, but the music industry, money, titillation, G-string music. Now, I made 3 albums. I went to a whole bunch of labels, 15 labels. They say, Brother West, you got all this Talib Kweli, and you got Gerald Levert. That was the last song he did. And for me, Gerald's the greatest soul singer of his generation alongside Glenn Jones. But they didn't make a whole lot of money, but they're great. And that's very important to keep in mind because Sam Cooke, Curtis Mayfield, Sly Stone never won a Grammy. Milli Vanilli won 2. Give me Sam. Give me Curtis. Give me Sly. Now, Stevie Wonder and Beyonce and Aretha won tons of them, and Quincy probably won more. That's fine, but it ain't the Grammys. It gives them their genius, their tenderness, their talent, their attempt to connect soul to soul to soul. Stevie was Stevie before there was the Grammys. He gonna be Stevie if the Grammys go away. But go on and give it to him, I agree. That's cool. But don't get it twisted. It ain't about the Grammys. It's about touching the souls of people, keeping them in contact with their humanity to give them a sense of hope and possibility and dignity and creativity. That's what it's about. And that's been the history of black people, not just in the music, but in life. I I know I'm going on too long, but that's a particular answer to that question.
Yeah, I don't even want to keep asking questions. I just want to listen to that. So music is a very unique job to have. Many music industry workers primarily work in a gig-based economy. Because of that, musicians and music workers are very fragmented, each one working and kind of looking out for themselves. In your opinion, how can we foster a closer sense of community and camaraderie in jobs like this, where there is no common workplace or employer?
Well, I would say I think it's a community. All of us in this community, it's our job to kind of hold this group together and say, you know, we are the consumers, for lack of a better word, of music, and if we want to have music available to us for us to enjoy, then we as members of this community of people who want to continue to enjoy this music, we have to show up and go to all of the opportunities to keep the music going. From a policy perspective, so from a city council perspective, you know, city council has the live music fund where, especially post-pandemic, where they're created that grant opportunity to try and hold on to some of those live music events, some of those things that got me those 120, 50 plus shows to go to. Those require venues and opportunities, and so the city set aside some of the what's called hotel occupancy tax to help to continue to fund those opportunities. Councilmember Harper Madison also championed some policy that started with holding on to Blues on the Green, but really sparked a larger conversation about how do we as policymakers say, if this is something that's important to our community, if this is something that we want to be a part of the Austin fabric, then what are we as a city doing to hold on to those things? And those include, beyond the live music fund and grants and opportunities, it's also about collaborating with HT, ACC, UT to help the education part of it, because it is a business. When I was in college, that's when I first worked in the music industry. I was a part of a student organization, and we produced concerts. And from the age of 19 to 21, I learned how to produce shows, and which would help me understand a lot of things about the music business part of it. So kind of finding those opportunities for us to say, as policymakers, as the city of Austin, what can we do to not only hold on to the things that are starting to slip away, how do we also create the runway for the next generation? You know, because and when it comes to the music industry, I'm definitely in the old crew. I mean, when I first came up, I was young in 20s with the C's that would go on to become C3 and the people that would do South by Southwest. And, you know, as we talk about the future, it's like, how do we make sure that who's the next C3? Who's the next festival? Like, we have to, whatever the next thing is, it all started from just kind of the young 20-somethings that loved the industry and wanted to do something. So how are we at least creating an opportunity for whatever that is, whatever that looks like, to make sure that that next group of people at least has a chance for us to pass the baton to them and they make it their own.
I hope there is not ever another C3. That would be awesome. But I do get what you're saying. Like, more power to musicians and music workers would be amazing. I think that we all agree. I think, you know, I'm the newest member of the Austin Music Council or Commission, not council, commission. And I think one of the things that I'm learning pretty quickly is that the piece of the pie that's being distributed from the hot tax, the occupancy tax, feels so small in comparison to how much music gives to Austin and to tourism in general. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I think the hot tax that goes to musicians is about $4 million for hundreds of musicians. And then it also creates this very divisive atmosphere with musicians and gig workers alike, because the music industry is so much bigger than just us as musicians and the music venues. You know, you have your door people, your sound engineers, your, you know, even bar staff, floor people. Those people are so underrepresented when it comes to the music industry in general. There would be none of it without musicians, and obviously there's, like, it's such a integral part of it, but there's an entire ecosystem that needs to be looked out for. And it's divisive because the amount that we're given to support ourselves from these occupancy taxes is so little that there isn't enough to get to the sound person, the sound engineer, the door person, or the merch selling person that's touring with the band. Everyone is just living on so little and sharing so little of it that I'd love to see more from the live music capital of the world.
Great points, you guys. Austin is mainly known for its blues and folk music, but it's home to a rich history for many different genres. For example, Ray works at the Doris Miller Auditorium, which was a celebrated venue stop on the historic Chitlin Circuit. These other genres seem to be an afterthought in many conversations about music here. Why is it so important to hold space for diverse genres in the city, and do you have any ideas on how that can be encouraged?
Well, I'll speak just on the fact that, to your point, Doris Miller, if you are not familiar, it's literally right here where 11th Street meets Rosewood, the Doris Miller Auditorium. 40s and 50s, black artists were allowed to perform. It's the only venue other than Victory Grill, I believe, that allowed the likes of Ike Tina Turner, Jackie Wilson, Chuck Berry, all these amazing artists played in that very building. And the building is exactly what it was during that time. And I think the only difference between our footprints and theirs is just this little piece of wood. So you walk in the space and you feel the history. But the problem is they're using it now for quinceañeras and high school reunions and things of that nature. And that's okay. But where is the city's involvement in kind of utilizing the marquee and saying, hey, back in the 40s and 50s, this is what it was. We can revamp that right now. We have an initiative where we've raised $30,000+ through Austin Parks Foundation to kind of reinstate the Doris Miller to a performance arts venue. And I think that it has to be kind of utilized like a trademark. It gets popular through usage. We have to use the space. It's almost a free resource. It is probably one of the most amazing kind of hubs if you think about it. It has free parking. It has a green room. It has my recording studio for my organization, Notes for Notes in it. It has a vanity room. So everything you could think about for an upscale, just feel that celebrity vibe walking into a space, it's there. It exists. You don't have to do reconstruction, but people need to utilize it. You need to go and utilize the space. Say, let's throw a show here. It's not going to compete with Stubbs. It's not going to compete with Far Out right now. But it will be a place that says, we've thrown a show here. It's nice. Let's throw another one. Let's throw another one. Let's do more diverse acts. We'll start to see some of the hip-hop acts, some of the blues acts. And it can be all of the things. Blues is represented. Rock is represented. All these different things. I don't think there needs to be any kind of segregation of any of the music. Let it all come, but it just needs to be utilized and let it kind of grow organically that way, I think. So.
Yeah, incredible answer. Anybody else?
I think music is so fundamental for the spiritual and psychic life of a nation. American music played a much more fundamental role in wrestling with the vicious legacy of white supremacy than churches, than law. When people heard the genius of a Mary Lou Williams or Duke Ellington or Count Basie or Billie Holiday, you already had something that a lot of vanilla brothers and sisters could not deny, even though they were taught lies about black people. These people are not that intelligent. Then how come Louis Armstrong sends me to places I know not of? These people don't have creativity. Then how come Sarah Vaughan touches me at the deepest level of my humanity, even though I'm living on the vanilla side of a white supremacist city? And of course, by the time you got to rock and roll, they had already overcome some of the vicious forms of Jim Crow before 1954 with the law. And most of the churches were still desegregated. So what is it about the music? Oh, it would be so beautiful if American society and American politics were 1/10 as beautiful as American music at its best. You all see what I'm trying to say? How do you translate that kind of spiritual, psychic, cultural connection of our deep humanity when we living in a white supremacist world and society that's saying that precious Jamal and Letitia and Jose and Juanita are less human than somebody else? And we ain't even got the indigenous people yet. So when you talk about music, you're talking about something that is elemental and fundamental. You know, Plato says in the Republic, allow me to write the songs of a nation rather than their laws. He said that 2,000 years ago in the Republic. And there's something to that. And there's no accident then that music more and more is something that people want to contain, control, dumb down, flatten out, and make it as if it's just some mere entertainment over here. It ain't never been that. And for those of us who come out of black churches, we know the church without sound and song, the Holy Spirit is taking a break and gone to sleep and dormant. The Spirit will not descend without song. And the great black musical tradition that I'm talking about primarily comes from those churches of those rich African peoples, those black peoples who were told they were less than, and here comes Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And then you take it from there and you end up with a Charlie Parker or a Coltrane or Miles Davis. I know I'm jumping on, but you all see the point I'm making. When we talk about music, don't think that it's some marginal affair in the corner. It sits at the very center. The first mass entertainment in the history of America in the 19th century was minstrel, white brothers and sisters in black mass. 20,000 vanilla brothers and sisters would show up. 10,000 would show up at the lynching, and 20,000 would show up with white folk in black mass. What's going on? Put on the blackness and feel free. But you got these people over here unfree. How are these unfree people producing this freedom? Ooh, listen to Ma Rainey. Listen to Bessie Smith. You're going to have a foretaste of some rich freedom and some truth and some goodness and some raw wrestling with reality that's forever changing and dynamic. And it's not as if, as we know, it's confined to just folk of black pigmentation. Black folk can sing classical opera like Leontine Price. And you could have, the Hall & Oates and the Average White Bands and others learning from black folk. And Eminem ain't no joke. That brother's a genius. I mean, he ain't Biggie and Tupac, but I mean, that's all right. Hey, that's all right. That's all right. Give him number 6. Give him number 6. but he was humble enough to learn the way Bex Beiderbecke was humble enough to learn from Louis Armstrong. The way Gil Evans and Bill Evans were humble enough to learn from Art Tatum and Oscar Peterson, because it's at that deep human level where you make that connection. Of course, it's true for other parts of the world, as an immigrant from Brazil and other places.
Incredible. Again, I don't know how to follow that up. Real quick for Pedro, without music venues, there would be nowhere for us musicians and other industry workers to put on a show. So I'd like to ask you, what has been the greatest challenge for just venues since the pandemic?
There are many challenges to running a music venue. There are two particular ones that I feel are really strangling the music ecosystem, echo chamber that we live in Austin in particular. And it's not too unlike what's happening in the housing problem in Florida where a lot of the insurance companies are leaving the state because they're no longer insuring these housing or the market in general. So what's happening with Austin, I think in Texas in general, is since the pandemic, a lot of the insurance companies that would insure music venues have just left the market, and we're left with about two of them, two that I know for sure, and I've been researching this for years and I haven't found another one. And what that causes, it creates this monopoly on the scalability of how they charge you for insurance. So now a venue about our size has to pay about $100,000 a year in insurance because there's no market and they control all of it. And that is just unsurvivable in a city like this where the rent's already skyrocketing and we're having to sell beer to survive a music venue where the idea was to have an arts and community space and to provide for musicians and artists and people who work in the music industry. I'm paying rent by selling Lone Star to people that come to the show because it's unsurvivable. It's a net zero sum to have a music venue at this point between rent and insurance. And the other big thing that actually connects to the insurance problem is there's this big business of music that's coming into town even stronger than ever. It started, I think, with C3 and those guys, and then now it's Live Nation. And they have a stranglehold on talent. And to be an independent venue, to fight for whatever talent you can get that's outside of Live Nation is unsurvivable. And what they do is they self-insure. So all of the venues owned by Live Nation have the self-insurance policy because they're a conglomerate. I would love to see a space in Austin where venues work together, and maybe there was a self-insurance policy where we could all kind of chip into and work together, maintaining our independence, but banding together to not let people or corporations and big business like Live Nation take over our entire industry and survive as a small business as we should. And also what that's doing is the need to fight for bigger acts and more people and constantly bigger shows really takes away from independent venues' abilities to cater to smaller up-and-coming artists because you need more people to sell more beer to be able to pay your rent and the skyrocketing rates of insurance, where I would love to be able to cater to a lot more local and grassroots programs that maybe aren't as successful but will be and are probably more important to the ecosystem of Boston in general.
Yeah. Can I just say, it sounds like a recurring theme that's killing it. It seems like scarcity is at the root of why it's eating away at the community aspect. Like, because there is such, it's almost like a crab mentality going on that we cannot unite and create these things like the insurance and the things that we need because we have to survive. There's no other option. And I think the art suffers, the community suffers. So one of the things I wanted to say is there are groups out there like Austin, Texas Musicians Group. There's DAWA, there's all of these groups. I'm on the board of Sims Foundation that supports mental health insurance for musicians. All these peripheral groups are supporting and trying to create community. So if they go away because they get cuts in funding, which is a problem, then that's even less support. So I feel like if we are trying to support the community builders through more funding, then that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. From your answer, it seems like corporations seem to be a problem for not only musicians with streaming and AI, but also for venues. And so I would like to ask Dr. West, from federally determined streaming rates to copyright legislation with AI, what responsibility does the government have in protecting artists and their art from exploitation from corporations?
Ooh, what a wonderful question. What a wonderful question. Yeah, I think it's very important that, see, the government is the public life, and the music is fundamental to the public life. And therefore, the government must make sure that those who have a distinctive calling of raising their voices, of painting their pictures, are able to flower and flourish. Now, we've got examples of this in various parts around the world. In France, they have massive support of their artists from their government. One of the reasons why TXT is one of the biggest groups in the United States can come to Madison Square Garden and sell out twice. I'm talking about Korean pop. And so much of it is black music. Filtered through. Still sound good, but you know, it ain't Southside Chicago, let's put it that way. The Korean government deeply subsidizes the whole musical world. Now, there's a problem there, because anytime government intervenes, you want to make sure that it doesn't have authoritarian implication. You want to make sure that it's fair. You want to make sure, in fact, that there's ways in which artists are not pitted against each other. We had a moment of that in the 1930s under FDR with the federal works programs. You brought in writers, you brought in architects, you brought in literary figures like Richard Wright and a host of others, Ralph Ellison. They were tied to the government. Why? Because the government was intervening with resources, not just putting a nice little medal around their neck for the presidential award for X, Y, or Z, but providing resources, because every federal budget is a moral document. You find out what the priorities of your government. Right now, 62 cents for every dollar in the discretionary budget of the U.S. government goes to what? Military. That's why our military budget is more than the next 10 countries combined. With almost 1,000 military units around the world and special operations in 130 countries. Billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars spent. That's the priority. But when it comes to health care, quality education, right to housing, right to a whole host of social needs, can't find a penny. And then the artists in the back, almost just way up in the back. Where do we fit? Well, just keep playing your guitar. It's going to work out all right. Shh. I know Brother Bill could talk about his struggles, though. It was tough, though, wasn't it, brother? God almighty, those early years. And yet you're calling. What's great about the great artists is they have a vocation, not just a profession. They have a calling, not just a career. If they don't lift their voices, the rocks are going to shout out. That's the history of American artists. You see, that's Stephen Sondheim. That's the ones that go on anyway when the critics tell them they're not worth a dime. Or when John Coltrane plays Giant Steps in 1959 and the critics say he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't know how to play because he's playing too fast and he can't transpose the notes on the page. He says he's not concerned about the page. He doesn't want the notes to get in the way of the music. That's Train. That's Coltrane. See what I mean? That's the Thelonious Monk. This is wrong. Sometimes wrong is right. Sometimes wrong is wrong. Let's be honest about that. We want our musicians to do their homework and be disciplined, but sometimes it means you're cutting against the grain. You learned all the rules, and then you subvert the rules. But you got to do that all on your own in America, because you're out there with the market, trying to get your audience. I spent much time with one of the greatest artists of the last 20, 30 years, Prince himself. You was mentioned, I think, that Prince, I miss him every day. Every day. But he reminds me of Toni Morrison, who I was blessed to teach with at Princeton. Never saw Prince sleep. I say, come on, brother. Now, the young folks say stay woke, but they don't want you to suffer from insomnia. Take a nap, man. Take a nap. Never did. Toni Morrison up at 3:30 every morning. She's Catholic, so she go to Mass. Black woman, one of the greatest writers of the modern world. She's at Mass, and then she's writing. But she was on her own before she was a professor and finally got a salary. And she raising those two precious boys all by herself. Calling. Unbelievable scars and bruises, and yet transfiguring them into art. They should have been supported in some way. And if I had my say, in a West administration, shoot, there would be a musical renaissance. Musical renaissance, absolutely. Oh, my.
Beautifully said. Thank you for all these thoughtful answers. I'm now going to pass the mic to some special guests to talk a little bit about their own experience in the music industry and ask a couple questions of their own. Everyone, please welcome Katie Marie Marshner and Sam Reagan, two YouTube music labor organizers with the Alphabet Workers Union, CWA.
Okay, I'm just going to stand. Hi, everyone. So we were invited to think hard and bring a question to the panel. So I guess we can open with that, and then if we're invited to talk about our campaign more specifically, we can. So I'm going to go ahead and give mine. It's been touched on a bit, AI, which is encouraging, but I wanted to ask another question about it. So I've got this friend named Will, and he moved to Berkeley to work for an AI safety foundation, basically a watchdog organization, and he's kind of in the belly of the beast, so surrounded by 40 or 50 of the top AI research companies, and he said he's surrounded by sociopaths and narcissists. And one more thing for context, he says that every time he makes an estimate about how long it'll take for a given AI technology to reach a certain benchmark of sophistication, it's not only broken but shattered. So he's ringing some very strong warning bells about the power of this technology and how quickly it's coming. He estimates that in years or months, at least 30% of workers in our country, their jobs are on the chopping block. So sort of normal question, what do you think socially or legislatively we can do? But a spin on the question, suppose that we only have 1 year or less to get there.
Directed to me, my brother. All right, yeah. You know, I think that anytime you have new technological breakthroughs, all forms of technological innovation have to be either under the aegis of capital tied to profit or tied to what is best for the public in terms of the quality of life for them, you see. And unfortunately, we don't have enough forces that are committed to the latter. And my hunch is there in sunny California that all that the AI innovation is tied to profitability. Short-term profitability, not long-term quality of life for poor and working people. And the question then becomes, how do we generate countervailing forces against the use? That's not just AI. There's a whole host of other technological instrumentalities that are out there that need this kind of civic oversight. And that, for me, is the first step. That's the first step. But I also acknowledge, you know, on another level, that you know, we human beings as a species, we're so wretched in terms of too often being shot through with a conformity and a complacency and a cowardliness that we're willing to cave in too quickly or sell out too fast. And if we don't have citizens with moral character who are willing to tell the truth and sacrifice for it in organized forms, then the organized greed is always going to triumph. And the ultimate logic of organized greed is what? The planet is over. And that is what is so difficult for me to come to terms in terms of having kids and grandkids and so forth. Because as bad as the 60s were, we didn't have the kind of ecological catastrophe with fossil fuel industries out of control. We had the possibility of pushing buttons. Was Russian elites or American elites pushing the button with the nuclear holocaust, but not the ecological one that's in the making when you see it day in and day out, day in and day out. So that's another example of how we need to have countervailing forces tied to public life, in this case with AI and other cases as well. But thank you for that question, and that's just the beginning of an answer to you.
So I think maybe it would be appropriate to give it a little context for why we were invited here. We worked for YouTube Music as subcontractors, and our entire team of 40 people are comprised of musicians that live in the city of Austin, music industry professionals such as myself. I worked with Max for many years in Austin producing events, and I've been a tour manager for over a decade. And during the pandemic, most of us found our way into the tech industry via that job. And I think it's safe to say that it was the first corporate job for many of us, and we were very disheartened very quickly. And so Sam and I decided to form a union to advocate for not only ourselves, but our coworkers. And we won our election unanimously, 41 yes votes and 0 no votes. And I mentioned we were subcontractors, so we were technically employed by a company called Cognizant. They're evil, don't ever work there. But we really worked for Google. We worked with Google tools exclusively on YouTube, on the YouTube Music platform. And so we were able to argue to the NLRB that we are jointly employed by both companies and both of them should meet us at the bargaining table, and we won that argument as well. And this kind of gets to my question. The NLRB is really good at saying things, but not so good at enforcing their rulings. If anyone in this room is part of a labor union, you probably know all too well that they're understaffed and underfunded. And so, yeah, they can say, that Google, you employ these people and you must bargain with them, but they have absolutely no hand in forcing them to do so. And we actually went in front of our city council to get help in that fight, and they fired us as we were on the floor speaking to our city council and our mayor. Yeah.
You all are the people I read about?
Yeah.
You were part of that too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been said in different ways throughout this discussion that corporate greed is out of control. The billionaires, monopolies, and oligopolies that run this planet are out of control. And I guess my question to you is, what can be done about a government agency that is meant to protect workers and their rights, but have absolutely no ability to enforce their rulings?
Oh, that sounds like much of the U.S. government is captured by corporate greed. You talk to any politician after 2 or 3 drinks in Washington, and they'll say, Brother West, you know this is legalized bribery and normalized corruption. These lobbies have so much power. And the people's voices, you got 70% of American people who want health care for everybody. And the big pharmaceutical companies won't even allow it to come out of the committee. And that's just one example. We ain't got to Gaza yet. You see? So that when you have corporate elites with a very myopic view of the world, short-term profit, and even when you have the institutions that's supposed to be supportive of our precious working people, no matter what color or gender or sexual orientation or region, and they become captive, all you have left is insurgency. All you have left is fighting. All you have left is hitting the streets. All you have left is going to jail. And all you have left is your grandmama's prayer. To keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. Choose justice, choose justice. More life, more life, more life. You're not going to crush us. Every Goliath goes under David. David, what you got in your slingshot? What kind of rock you got in your slingshot, David? Oh, give it to Davida. Davida got a better slingshot. Oh, then they coming together. Thank you so very much.
Yes, thank you both for being here. Finally, we're going to move into the audience Q&A. We have time for a couple of questions. Any of you who are work in the music industry or service industry, we'd like to hear from you guys first. So if you have a question, Max will come to you with the mic. Please raise your hand.
Whoa. My name is Trey Privet. I make music under the name Los Coast. I had a plethora of questions, but I think I just wanted to start with saying we've talked a lot about blues, and I was reading Bell Hooks, and she talks about how blues is actually, and I'm not sure if you could say art imitates life or life imitates art, but blues is actually it's more of like a representation of like a patriarchal sickness than something to aspire to, and that humans actually have like higher aspirations as far as their artistry goes when reaching like a spiritual level. And so I've worked with the city of Austin, and I'm actually working with them now through the Live Music Fund, and it seems like Austin has a tendency to give funds to artists and people who facilitate artists to create, but not in the sense of just existing or to be sustainable or to live. And I wonder if there's a dialogue just about housing artists. There's a lot of funds that go towards people that are experiencing housing instability, but rarely do you hear about people just trying to set up support systems for artists to live in, to create, like they've done in New York and things that you've seen in Europe or in Canada. And so I'm wondering, and I mean, this is after seeing, Spotify, they did a launch party at Cenote, years ago. Facebook did their, some of their lift-off parties on Rainy Street. So, I mean, as artists, we've seen these companies come in off our backs and pretty much use a lot of our, clout, I guess people say, to launch internationally to get funds. And, $10,000 is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, like we've seen a lot of money go from, to these companies that are just raking in money, and we can count, so we know what's happening. But throughout this process, I've seen friends pass away. I've seen, people deal with like mental health things, and based on like Pavlov's hierarchy of needs, it seems like, there would be just a lot more funds going towards just people existing and getting by rather than them creating an album or throwing a show. And so I'm just wondering where's that conversation at, and if there's anything we can do to help, or and I would love to hear your thoughts on, people say artists just need to sit around and do nothing to create at a high level. So I'm wondering, do artists constantly have to be creating in order to be artists, or are they just artists? Is that their calling?
You got a whole lot in those. Those reflections, though, brother. I teased out about 4 or 5 questions out of there. So we need a seminar in cognac in order to come to terms with the depth of your questions, my brother. First, let me say something about my dear sister Bell Hooks, who you know I've loved very dearly. We wrote a book together. We taught together for 25 years. I still miss her every day. And she listened to a lot of blues, brother. See, when she talks about patriarchy, she knows patriarchy is in every institution, in every sphere of our society. So yes, it's going to be in the music. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. But when you listen to a Howlin' Wolf or a Muddy Waters or a Ma Rainey and a Bessie Smith, it's far more than patriarchy. The patriarchy might be there, but something else is going on too. You see what I mean? That's like going into a black church and you look up and you see Jesus who looks like Michelangelo's uncle. And you say, what's this white Jesus doing up here? All these black folk doing just worshiping this white man. Well, see, if that's all you see in the black church, you missing something. You missing a whole lot. But Michelangelo's uncle sitting up there, and we know Jesus is swarthy complexion, his hair woolly. Don't look like that. But it's never just one thing. So we shouldn't stop our critique of patriarchy in the black church. We know it, at its worst, it has tended to not uplift the genius of women as preachers and a host of other things. But at the same time, you got the folk coming through the churches like the Sarah Vaughns, who's from Mount Zion Baptist Church in Newark, playing the organ when she's 4. And the level of her genius is inseparable from the black church that produced her. And we can go on in that regard. Anita Baker from Hartford Memorial in Detroit, same church as Jesse Norman. Isn't that interesting? One went classical European, one went classical black. Same choir. You see. So what Bell Hooks was trying to say is keep track of that patriarchy everywhere. I agree with that. But she also knows there's other things going on in terms of how people are wrestling with their sense of humanity and death and dread and despair and disappointment and catastrophe and oppression and so forth and so on. The first wave of the great vocalists in the blues were women. The instrumentalists were men. Women. And many of us would argue that as great as Nat King Cole is, as great as Johnny Hartman is, I still believe they're still alive, as singers, when it comes to Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan and Dinah Washington and Carmen McRae, even that, go back and play a beautiful piano and say, let me listen to Sarah. As deep as I am, I know Sarah is in a different place. Now, it's not because she's a woman. It just happens to be the case that the greatest vocalists are so often women. Isn't that something? Is there a male equivalent to Aretha Franklin? No. Is there a male equivalent to Mahalia Jackson? No. James Cleveland, we love you, but sit down, brother, sit down. And again, I'm not saying this just to make the sisters feel good, even though it's a beautiful thing for sisters to feel good. This is a fact. This is truth that cannot be called into question, meaning what? Whatever patriarchy, they took it to a level that the whole world had to come to terms with in terms of their humanity. That's what's beautiful. That's what's wonderful. But I can't answer that second part of the question about housing in Austin. I'm supporting housing across the board, but somebody else can talk about the housing in Austin.
Well, I would say even beyond the housing, you asked specifically about those conversations and are people talking about that. I will speak from my own self. I'm new to City Hall. I am by trade an entrepreneur. And so when I first got to City Hall, I was like, why is no one talking about small business owners? And what about this? And we could be doing this and we could be doing that. And why isn't someone seeing this? I saw earlier my colleague Nefertiti Jackman walk in, and I know in some of the earliest meetings, boy, they got on my nerves. I was like, you know what we should be doing for small businesses? And so I say that to say that please come and engage with your city council member, come to City Hall. Those conversations are not happening potentially because the thing that I learned right away is why were people not talking enough about small businesses? Because there wasn't a small business owner in the room to say, hey, did you guys realize that we need help with blah, blah, blah? I mean, I think it's the rub of the job. We don't know. We all see the world through our own lens. And so if there's no one in the building who is seeing the world through the lens of an artist to say those things, it's not an intentional exclusion. It's that this is how our system is supposed to function, to say, please come in. Please come in and talk to us. Please tell us about what's going on so that we can know and we can help. That was, the lesson that I learned. It's not that it wasn't not happening. It was just that someone who hadn't been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years wasn't in the building saying, hey, did we ever think about doing X, Y, and Z for the small business community? And so I would encourage you to, we do have, of course, the Music Commission. That group is charged with advising council, but that is not the only opportunity. It is people, we have in District 1, we have constituents that reach out to us all the time about stuff. We've had the Carver Museum who's reached out to us. We have, it's just, that's my job. You see members of my team in here. That's what we do, is we engage with our community, and we would love very much to engage with more members of the community. It's like a secret out there that the usual suspects know that if they reach out to city council, they could get something. But we want more people to know that so that we can say it's not enough for just me as the chief of staff to go and say, I feel like there's an issue with XYZ something and we should do that. If the members of that community come in and say, as a musician, as an artist, this is something, this is an opportunity, this is help that we need, there are people that listen. So I would encourage you to please come and engage with us and tell us what is going on, and let's talk about what we could possibly do.
Okay, thank you for those incredible answers. I think that's all the time we have for audience questions. We just had so much to talk about. Thank you guys, and apologies. But thank you for the thoughtful question. I'll go ahead and now pass the torch over to Dr. West to leave us with some closing thoughts after this insightful afternoon.
I probably said enough. I've said enough. Maybe we'll let our brother raise his question in public just quickly. Can I just pass on my time to him?
Go ahead.
Because I've said so many things.
So honored to have you here, first of all. I'm so honored to have you here with us this afternoon, first of all. My name is Bevis Griffin. I'm considered the first African-American hard rock musician in the state of Texas history. I started my career here in Austin back in 1972 when I was 17 years old. So I've got massive roots in this city, and I migrated to New York City in '83 because there was no music infrastructure here in the early '80s, and I ultimately became one of the co-founding members of the Black Rock Coalition, along with my brother Greg Tate, rest in peace, and Vernon Reed, right? So what I'm rolling up to was that I understand the power of synergy and community activation, so to speak, when you really have what I call the strength of multiple mentalities focused on one primary objective. It's unstoppable. But I can only tell you I came back from New York City to Austin, Texas because of the gentrification syndrome. And lo and behold, I managed to buy a piece of property in a condominium before 1995, and then now my neighborhood is completely gentrified. And the value of my property has escalated 5 times since I purchased it, right? So pointing towards a municipal observation, I'm only going to encourage everyone in the room to be very generous with your contacts, with your accessibility, because I don't know particularly when these civic meetings are available or how we can all, quote unquote, network and get on the same page to get in the same room, but I do know this for a fact from experience. Once we do get collectively on the same page and focused on a key objective and not trying to shoot like every bird in the tree, just knock them down one duck at a time over the course of a period of years, we'll meet our objectives. We have that power to do it. So thank you for coming and inspiring us.
Thank you, my brother. Now see, that's what I mean by ending on a high note with a last word of vision by a pioneer, a past blazer, and he's still on fire. Give it up for our brother. Give it up for our brother. Long live Greg Tate. We love you, Greg. Never forget you. Never forget you. Indeed. Oh, yeah. Wonderful.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aaron Williams, and I'm a student at Houston-Tillotson University.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We are the only HBCU in Austin, Texas, and I have a couple friends with me, Zayas.
Stand up, everybody from
Mason at?
Everybody from stand up. There we go.
Yeah.
We're looking at the future. We're looking at the future right here.
There you go, right there. So we are here representing Houston-Tillotson University, and I'm currently running to be the next SGA vice president at my institution. And I believe this question can be connected to music as well as just fighting, different institutions. You mentioned when all you have left is to fight, going to jail, and your grandma's prayers. How do you strategize the revolutionary work by shaking up the system without running off emotionalism?
Oh, wonderful. Lord. Boy, I'm so glad we extended this thing. Good God Almighty. And brother, your fro looking so sharp, man. I might have to just hand you my fork from the Ohio Players 1972. You know what I mean? Love you though, brother. Woo. Lord, it's sweet up in here. But one thing to keep in mind, though, brother, is that you come from a great people who were fortified. So anytime you're talking about revolutionary X or Y, it means you're getting your mind together so you got a clarity of analysis and vision. You're getting your heart together so you got a moral compass. And you're getting your spirit together that you're going to go down swinging like Ella Fitzgerald, Muhammad Ali. But it takes discipline to do that. So when you say emotionalism, I don't think emotionalism is something that we should ever even talk about. We're talking about passion. You see a lot of people say, well, black people are full of emotionalism in church. No, they're full of passion. That's different. You see, Al Green is full of emotionalism. No, that brother, he's a genius full of passion. But with Willie Mitchell and the others, he's mastered his craft. He knows what he's doing when he's going up falsetto. As revolutionaries, forces for good, whatever language we use, we want to be fortified with our minds, clear analysis of catastrophe, power, oppression, capitalism, imperialism, empire, white supremacy, male supremacy. We want to make sure our hearts are right. Because sometimes you can have a sharp analysis and still have a chilliness of soul and a cold heart. So you don't really love the people, you love your analysis. That's Martin King, right? This is the cross we must bear for the freedom of our people. That's what he said when he was in that paddy wagon after 4.5 hours in the dark with the German shepherd biting him every every minute of the way. Daddy King told me when Martin left, got out of that paddy wagon, he couldn't walk a straight line. All he could say is, this is the cross we must bear for the freedom of our people. See, the cross is not something you talk about. The cross is something you bear and you're willing to die on to get a crown. Well, whatever follows thereafter. That's the heart. Angela Davis had it as a communist. She didn't need Jesus. I need Jesus. That's all right. I'm going with Jesus, but that's all right, Angela. You do your thing. As long as you loving the people and sacrifice for the people and die for the people. And she had a natural like yours. She had a natural like yours, but she loved the people. Malcolm did it as a Muslim. I got theological differences with the brother. But he loved me, I love him. I don't exist without him. Muhammad Ali, same way. But then the other side is the passion. So don't let anybody reduce passion to emotionalism. See what I mean? No, not at all. Even MC Hammer. Michael Jackson moonwalking. That's not emotionalism. That's discipline. Like the Nicholas brothers, dancing with discipline. Bill Bojangles Robinson, dancing with discipline, with passion. Because what does passion do? It connects to the souls of others. And probably more than anything else, it forces you to surrender yourself. See, part of the genius of great music, especially in the black tradition, is emptying yourself. When I used to travel with the Funkadelics, and George Clinton would say, Brother West, you gonna lead us in prayer? I said, well, I don't know, I'm a Christian, but I got a lot of gangster in me, pray for me. Then I'd pray, but I would lead in prayer. But then after every prayer, George Clinton would say what? We gonna leave everything inside of us on that stage that we rocked it in such a way that we funkified the whole audience. Took them on the mothership, whether the mothership arrived or not. That's like Sun Ra with the orchestra. Y'all know Sun Ra? Oh, yes. Begin every concert. Black people have tried everything possible. It's time to try the impossible. Am I right, brother? See, he said, I just arrived from Saturn last night. I'm going to take you with the orchestra to another world for 2 hours. And you're about to think, what's this brother talking about? And after 25 minutes, you feel yourself levitating. You say, oh, Lord, have mercy. Yes, that's what it is to have musical, acoustic, melodic, harmonic, polyrhythms come together and touch people's soul. And then at that point, it's human all the way down. You get white brothers and sisters responding, sometimes not with the rhythm you would like, but they're responding. That's all right. It's a human thing. That's what's wonderful about music. And that's one of the things that we want to pass on to the younger generation and make sure that when you engage in your revolutionary thing, that those prayers of grandmama, of love, you might have a clear analysis. You may have more opportunities. But if you had the kind of grandmama I did, I don't open my mouth without trying to put a smile on her face. Because I wouldn't be who I am without that kind of love. And then I proceed with my own voice. But let's salute the young people here. Let's salute the young people here. Appreciate the question. Appreciate the question.
All right, so I think we do need to be wrapping up about now, but I want to thank everyone on the panel, and I'd really like to thank Austin, Texas musicians and Pat. And Sarah as well. So, very briefly, my name is Max. I work for Dr. West on his presidential campaign. I'm his director of advance. So, the kind of work that Pat and Sarah are doing right now is the kind of work that put me directly in this position where I'm very privileged to be able to spend all of this time with Dr. West and help set up these sorts of events. It was music advocates in Burlington, Vermont, back in the 80s that got together and opened a all ages volunteer run organizing space where I learned how to book events, produce concerts, things like that, which eventually led me to move to Austin, Texas, and I lived here for 13 years, and I produced a festival here called Fun 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 Fest. And, oh, thank you. And in the spaciousness of Austin 2006, I had a lot of room to dream and learn my craft. Working emos 2 nights a week at the door, getting paid $10 an hour. I lived in a pantry, but it didn't matter because I got to go on tour and I got to learn how to do the sorts of things that led me to be able to go on tour with Dr. West, which is really incredible. And this is the sort of advocacy, these are the sort of conversations that ATX musicians are creating space for and pulling together. And Pat, I want to know, how can people support ATX musicians?
Thank you, Max. Well, first of all, this is such a fantastic conversation, and of course, there's not enough time for it all. So we are going to continue this conversation tonight. We host a monthly music industry mixer. This will be a radio coffee down on Manchac from 7 to 11 p.m. You guys are all invited. We can keep talking. But beyond that, there's a lot of great organizations that are doing the hard work in town. We've got Shaka and Kidada over here working with Dawa, who are supporting the black artists in Austin. Y'all give a big hand for these guys. We've got Ham in the room today, members from the Health Alliance for Austin Musicians. And, you know, as far as we're concerned, you can follow us at ATX Musicians on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We're kind of in a funding crisis ourselves, so we'll be dead in the water in 5 months. So we're going to be looking for support as well, so we can continue to, you know, create things like the Live Music Fund or the city standard pay rate of $200 per musician that Sarah wrote the resolution for last summer. So. Thank you. So yeah, we'd love to continue the dialogue. We'd love to continue to talk with you guys. But it takes a village. And so I guess I'd like to ask Dr. West and Max, you guys, as you guys continue to do this work and as you guys continue to take what you've learned here today forward, how can we all support you?
Well, for us, you'll notice, I'm going to put a couple people on the spot here. We have a couple fantastic volunteers in the back of the room over in that direction. Hey, guys. So for one thing, it's a very high bar to get on the ballot in the state of Texas. And we need all of you to help us petition to get Dr. West's name on the ballot in Texas. There's a form to fill out back there, and we would love your signature. In addition to that, to get involved with the campaign to help keep us on the road, you can go to our website, or if you have a phone, you can text WEST, W-E-S-T, to 33339, and you can learn how to volunteer, you can learn how to give us donations, and you can keep in touch with us, because we're going to be back in Texas soon. We'd love to connect with all of you. We need you to help keep us on the road, and you need to join it. We need you to join us on the road. So yeah, please connect with us online, talk with our volunteers back there. We can also collect donations if you feel so inclined at this time. And yeah, that's it. Keep in touch, unless you have anything to add.
That sounds good, my brother. Sounds good.
Say, how's everybody doing? Good, good, good. My name is Bashir Jones. I'm also here with Max and supporting Dr. West's campaign. And he's so nice. Max is so nice. So he didn't even want to put the pressure on you. But I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on you. If you enjoy Dr. West and you support Dr. West and you appreciate the work that he's been doing for so long, please make some noise for Dr. West. Make some noise. Good, 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 good. Yeah. So, you know, Dr. West is doing a very courageous act. A very courageous act for a man like him who believes what he believes, who he believes a lot of what we believe. It's really hard to take this path to run for president. And for those who love him, you probably thought to yourself, why in the world are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Please, we love you so much. Don't make yourself a target. because we know what America does to its freedom fighters. Not only the physical assassination, but the assassination of character. That's what comes first. So the very people that you love will begin to doubt you. That's how they do it. So we understand that your prayers are necessary. As Max said, your volunteer, your time is necessary, right? Dr. West is one person, so he can't be all over the place, but we can represent for him. And also, your resources are necessary. Your resources. When you plant seeds, you gain a crop. You don't lose the seed. So we need your resources. So I know we said it kind of like haphazardly, but we need for you to commit to really planting seeds for this campaign, all right? So it doesn't have to be $1,000 right now, but maybe it's $1,000 over 10 months. Maybe you can commit to $50 a month. Maybe you can commit to $5 a month. I don't know, it's tough times. We all going through it. But whatever you can give, we need for you not to leave today without making a commitment to give today, okay? If you got 1 penny, we take EBT, we take it all, whatever you got. Oh, y'all don't, I ain't from here, so I don't know if y'all got EBT. But anyway, Dr. West, we take EBT, Dr. West? Okay, all right. Okay, that's just from, I'm from Cleveland, so that's what we got. We got EBT. All right, so, hey, listen, one person don't have to give 6,000, but guess what? If 30 of us give 200, then we reach our goal, all right? It's power in people, all right? So if you can make a commitment today, that beautiful young lady back there is holding up those things, you know what I'm talking about? If you can make a commitment to give whatever you can give once a month, raise your hand right now if you can make that commitment to Dr. West. Just once a month give something. I know y'all in school, so I know it's kind of hard. I get it. But if you can give $1, $5, $10, whatever you can once a month, we don't want for CNN to tell a narrative about Dr. West and that be the resounding narrative. We know who Dr. West is. We studied him when we was in school, back in high school, middle school. We watched him from television. We seen him on The Matrix. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know Dr. West. And we're not going to let no media tell us who Dr. West has been for us. So we need for you to battle on social media. We need for you to volunteer on the ground. We need you not to be silent because there is a consequence for words. There is a consequence for words. But there's a greater consequence for silence. And I'm about to say Dr. King, because you know where you would have been with Dr. King based upon where you at with Dr. West. For real, for real. You know what you would have been back in the day based upon the freedom fighters that you stand with today. All right, so do not leave here, I beg you. And not just you, but also get your family members too. Maybe you don't have that money, but get some aunties and cousins who have borrowed trust, who support what you support. We need everybody to get involved, okay? So we thank you all so much. We appreciate it. I just want to make sure I highlight that. Thank you.
I'm sorry? Yeah, let me see if I can get a, yeah.